Welcome back. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare for a story you won't forget. Some roads are not dangerous because of what happens on them, but because of what waits there after midnight.
My mother-in-law begged us not to build that house, a horror story inspired by Vietnamese folklore. There are places in Vietnam where people don't ask if a house is haunted. They ask who buried something beneath it. If you've never been to the Mekong Delta, it's hard to explain. Small villages stretch along muddy rivers. Most homes are built only a few feet above the water. During the day, they're peaceful. Children ride bicycles through narrow dirt roads. Women sell noodles in front of their homes. Old men drink tea beneath mango trees. Everything feels ordinary until the sun goes down, because in many villages, people believe the night belongs to something else. My name is Lan. Everything I'm about to tell you happened in the province of An Giang in southern Vietnam. I was 19 years old when I married my husband, Huy. People often told me I was lucky. Huy was hardworking. He never drank, never gambled. He treated me better than most husbands in the village. There was only one problem: his mother. The first time I met her, she smiled so warmly that I thought all the rumors were exaggerated. Everyone said she practiced old rituals. Some whispered that she knew black magic. Others claimed she could curse people simply by touching something they owned. I laughed. I had finished high school. I didn't believe in those stories. She welcomed me into the family with tea and homemade cakes. She called me daughter. She even hugged me before I left. Looking back now, I wish she had hated me from the beginning. Because people who smile while hiding hatred are far more dangerous. Life was peaceful for the first 6 months. I helped her cook. I sold noodles with her every morning. Every evening we ate dinner together. Nothing seemed unusual until one night I couldn't sleep. My pillow felt strangely uncomfortable, almost like something hard was hidden inside. I unstitched one corner of the pillowcase. Inside was a folded piece of yellow paper. It wasn't ordinary paper. It was covered with symbols written in dark red ink. Some looked like Chinese characters. Others looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. When I unfolded it, a strange smell came out, like burned herbs, mixed with something rotten. I asked my husband, "Did you put this here?" He looked at the paper. His face immediately turned pale. For almost a minute, he didn't answer. Then he whispered, "My mother told me to." I wanted to believe there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe it was some kind of old family tradition. Maybe it was meant to protect me. People in rural Vietnam sometimes place charms under pillows or above doorways to keep away bad luck. So I carried the yellow paper downstairs. My mother-in-law was already awake, preparing broth for the morning noodle shop. She looked up and smiled. "You're awake early." I placed the folded charm on the table. "Can you tell me what this is?" Her hands froze for the briefest moment. Then she laughed. "Oh, that! It's just something old people do." She reached for it. I pulled it back before she could touch it. If it's nothing, why was it hidden inside my pillow? For the first time since I'd met her, the smile disappeared. She stared at me for several long seconds. Then she quietly returned to cutting vegetables. "I don't know. You should ask Huy." That answer didn't make any sense. Huy had already admitted his mother gave it to him. So why was she pretending she had never seen it? I kept pressing her. Finally, she slammed the knife onto the cutting board. The sound echoed through the house. "You've only been here a few months. And already you think I'm trying to hurt you? I raised my son. I built this family. Don't come into my kitchen accusing me of witchcraft." Without another word, she walked away. That afternoon, Huy apologized over and over. My mother grew up differently. People back then believed in strange things. "Please don't make this into something bigger." I wanted to let it go. I really did. Because in Vietnam, arguing with your husband's mother doesn't just create tension, it divides the entire family. So I burned the yellow paper. I watched every corner turn into ash. For a moment, I felt relieved. I thought whatever fear had entered our home had disappeared with the smoke. I couldn't have been more wrong. 3 nights later, I woke up to footsteps, not outside, above me. Our roof was made of thin corrugated metal. Anyone walking across it would make a very distinctive sound. Clang, 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 slow, heavy, like someone walking barefoot. I nudged High. "Do you hear that?" He opened his eyes, listened, then sat upright. The footsteps continued, one end of the roof to the other, back and forth for almost 10 minutes. High grabbed a flashlight. "I'll check." I begged him not to. He went anyway. I stood in the yard watching as he climbed the wooden ladder. The footsteps stopped the instant his head rose above the roofline. He shined the flashlight everywhere. Nothing. No person, no animal, not even a cat. Only cold metal reflecting the moonlight. When he climbed down, he forced a smile. "Probably birds," I looked at him. "Barefoot birds?" He didn't answer. Now that should have been the end of it. Except the footsteps came back the next night, and the night after that, always after midnight. Always the same pace, never running, never stopping halfway, just walking, as if someone was patiently waiting for us to fall asleep. About a week later, something even stranger happened. Every morning before sunrise, I would wash clothes behind the house. There was a simple bathing area covered with old wooden panels. Beside it stood a large clay water jar. I hung my clean clothes on a wire stretched between two poles. It had never been a problem, until one morning. I finished bathing, reached for my clothes. They were gone. Every single piece. I searched everywhere. Then I heard Hui calling from outside. "Lan, why are your clothes inside the water jar?" I walked over. There they were, floating on the surface, completely soaked. The strange thing wasn't that they had fallen. The wire was nearly 6 feet away. There was no wind. No one had come behind the house, and the jar had a heavy wooden lid. Someone, or something, had opened it, placed my clothes inside, then closed it again. Hui blamed the neighborhood children. I wanted to believe him, until it happened again, and again, every single morning. No matter where I hung them, they ended up inside that jar, sometimes neatly folded, sometimes twisted into tight knots. Once, I found muddy footprints circling the jar. Bare footprints, much smaller than an adult's, but larger than a child's. The footprints stopped at the water. There were none leading away, as if whoever made them had simply vanished. I stopped using the bathing area. Instead, I waited until daylight and bathed inside the house. My mother-in-law noticed. She smiled without looking at me. "Afraid of ghosts now?" I didn't answer. She chuckled softly. "You'll get used to them." Those 6 words sent a chill through my body, not because of what she said, but because of how naturally she said it. As if ghosts weren't something to fear, as if they were already part of the family. 1 week later, Hai told me we had finally saved enough money to build our own house. It would stand only 20 feet away from the old one. Our own home, he said. No more arguments. No more living under my mother's roof. I hugged him tighter than I ever had before. I truly believed our nightmare was about to end. I had no idea it was only moving into a much bigger house. Construction began in the middle of October. In southern Vietnam, that's when the rainy season slowly starts to fade. The ground is still soft. The rivers are high. Every morning, thick fog hangs over the rice fields until the sun burns it away. Our new house wasn't far from the old one, maybe 20 feet, close enough to see my mother-in-law sweeping her front yard every morning. Far enough, I hoped, to finally have some peace. For the first time since I got married, I was excited. Hui was excited too. We spent every afternoon watching the workers build our future. Wooden beams, concrete columns, brick walls. Every nail they hammered into that house felt like another step away from all the strange things we'd experienced. Or so we thought. On the 3rd day of construction, one of the workers refused to continue. His name was Min. He had been building houses for nearly 30 years. He wasn't the kind of man who scared easily. Around noon, I saw him standing alone near the foundation, smoking one cigarette after another. His face looked pale. We walked over. "What's wrong?" Min didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the center of the construction site. Then he quietly asked, "Who chose this exact spot?" "My father did," we replied. "It belonged to our family." Min nodded slowly. Then he said something that made everyone uncomfortable. "I hit something underground." We thought it was a rock. It wasn't. The workers grabbed shovels and dug deeper. About 3 feet below the foundation, they uncovered an old clay jar. It was sealed with hardened black wax. No markings, no decorations, nothing. Just an old brown jar. One worker laughed. "Probably old rice wine." Another picked it up. It was surprisingly heavy. Min immediately shouted, "Don't open it!" The man laughed again. "What are you afraid of?" Before anyone could stop him, he broke the wax seal. The smell hit us first. Not rotten, not chemical, just old. Like the air trapped inside an abandoned room for 100 years. The worker looked inside. His smile disappeared. "What is it?" No answer. He simply backed away. When Hai looked inside, he quickly covered the jar again. Later that night, he finally told me what he'd seen. There wasn't gold or bones. Inside were dozens of tangled strands of long black hair, mixed with fingernails, pieces of faded yellow paper, and something wrapped in red cloth. None of the workers wanted to touch it again. That evening, my mother-in-law came outside for the first time. She stared at the jar for several seconds, then calmly said, "Throw it back." One of the workers asked, "What is it?" She shrugged. "Just garbage." Min looked directly at her. "No, it isn't." The two of them stared at each other without speaking. It was one of the strangest moments I'd ever witnessed. Almost as if they both knew exactly what was inside, but neither wanted to say it aloud. The next morning, Min never came back. Neither did 2 other workers. Their supervisor told us they had suddenly quit. No explanation, no phone calls, nothing, just gone. Finding replacement workers took almost a week. When the new crew arrived, they had no idea why construction had stopped. We didn't tell them. Despite everything, the house was finally finished before Christmas. It wasn't large. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a wooden staircase leading to the upper floor, and wide windows facing the river. It was beautiful, much nicer than the old family house. On the day we moved in, I remember standing in the empty living room thinking, this is where our real life begins. I wish I'd listened to the silence instead, because it felt wrong. A new house should smell like fresh paint and wood. Ours did. But underneath, there was another smell. Very faint, wet soil, like freshly dug earth after heavy rain. No matter how much I cleaned, it never disappeared. Our first night was peaceful. The second was too. By the third, the footsteps returned. Only this time they weren't on the roof. They were inside the walls. Slow, deliberate. One step, pause. Another step, as though someone was walking through a hallway that didn't exist. We heard them too. He grabbed a flashlight and searched every room. Nothing. The sound stopped whenever we moved, then resumed the moment we lay back down. It continued until sunrise. A week later, our dog disappeared. His name was Mook, a black village dog we'd raised since he was a puppy. He never wandered far. Every evening, he'd sleep beside our front steps. One morning, he was gone. We searched the entire property. The neighbors helped. No one found him. Late that afternoon, I heard barking, very faint, coming from beneath the house. I dropped to my knees and looked through the narrow space beneath the floorboards. It was completely dark. Then, 2 small reflections appeared. Eyes. I smiled. Mook. The eyes didn't move. They simply stared at me. Then, very slowly, they blinked sideways. Not like a dog, not like any animal I'd ever seen. A cold breeze rushed out from beneath the house. The barking stopped. The eyes disappeared. Mook was never seen again. That night, for the first time, Someone knocked on our bedroom door. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I opened it immediately. The hallway was empty. Every window was locked. Every door was bolted. No wind, no footsteps, no one. As he closed the door, I noticed something lying on the wooden floor outside. A single strand of long black hair, exactly like the ones inside the clay jar. We picked it up. Without saying a word, he walked outside and burned it. Neither of us slept for the rest of the night, because deep inside, we both knew the same thing. Whatever had been buried beneath that land hadn't stayed in the jar. It had moved into the house before we did. The next morning, I told myself I was imagining things. The missing dog, the footsteps, the strand of hair. Maybe exhaustion was making everything seem worse than it really was. That's what fear does. It takes ordinary events and stitches them together until they become a nightmare. So I forced myself to keep living normally. I swept the yard, cooked breakfast, helped Hwai repair the wooden fence. I refused to think about what had happened. Then, just before sunset, our neighbor came over. His name was Mr. Ba. He was nearly 70, one of those old men who had lived beside the river his entire life. He rarely spoke, but that evening, he stood outside our gate without saying a word. He just stared at the house. Finally, he asked, "Did you find something while building?" Who hesitated? "Just an old jar." The old man's expression changed immediately. "What was inside?" "Nothing important." Mr. Ba looked straight at me, then quietly said, "If it had nothing important, you wouldn't be lying." Neither of us answered. He sighed. "I warned your father years ago. He never listened." I frowned. "Warned him about what?" Instead of answering, he pointed toward the middle of our living room. What's underneath that spot should never have been disturbed. A chill ran down my spine. "How do you know?" He looked toward the river. "When I was a boy, there used to be another house there." Neither Hwai nor I had ever heard that before. Our family has always owned this land. Mr. Ba slowly shook his head. "No, not always." He sat down beneath the mango tree and began telling us a story. More than 50 years earlier, before either of us had been born, a widow had lived on this land with her young daughter. People believed she was different. She never attended festivals, never entered the village temple. She collected strange herbs from the forest after midnight. Children claimed they sometimes saw candles burning inside her house, long after everyone had gone to sleep. Then, one rainy season, the little girl disappeared. The mother searched everywhere. For days, weeks, months. The river was dragged. The forests were searched. Nothing, not a single trace. After that, the widow stopped speaking. She simply sat on her porch every evening, staring toward the river. One morning, people found her dead, still sitting in the same chair, eyes open, facing the water. The villagers tore the old house down. No one wanted to live there. Years later, Hai's grandfather bought the land. He filled the old foundation with fresh soil, built another house, started a family, and eventually everyone forgot what had happened. Everyone, except the people old enough to remember. Mr. Ba looked directly at us. "When you built this house, you dug into the old foundation. You woke something that had finally gone quiet." I laughed nervously. "You really believe that?" The old man didn't smile. Instead, he asked me one question. "Have you heard a woman crying yet?" My heart stopped because I hadn't told anyone, not even Hai. 3 nights earlier, I'd woken just before dawn. Someone had been softly crying outside our bedroom window. Not screaming, not sobbing, just quietly crying, like a mother trying not to wake her child. When I looked outside, there had been no one there. I never told anyone because I thought I dreamed it. Now, this old man had described it perfectly. Before leaving, Mr. Ba reached into his shirt pocket. He handed me a small cloth pouch. Inside was a simple bronze Buddha pendant. "It won't stop what's coming," he said quietly. "But sometimes it reminds them you still have someone praying for you." Then he walked away. I never saw him smile, not once. That night, rain fell harder than it had in months. The river overflowed. Wind shook every window in the house. Around 2 in the morning, I woke because I needed water. As I stepped into the hallway, I noticed something strange. The front door was open, not unlocked, wide open. The storm outside was raging. Rain was blowing inside. "Hi!" I called. No answer. I ran upstairs. He was still asleep. I shook him awake. We searched the entire house. Every window remained locked from the inside. There was no sign of forced entry. Nothing had been stolen. Only the front door, standing open, as if someone had quietly opened it, then left, or someone had been invited in. The next morning, I checked the muddy floor near the entrance. There were footprints. One set belonged to Hai, one set belonged to me, and another, bare feet, small, delicate, covered in river mud. The footprints came through the front door, walked slowly across the living room, stopped, right in the center of the house, exactly where the clay jar had been found beneath the foundation. Then they disappeared. No footprints leading away. No footprints upstairs. No footprints outside. Just gone. I felt my stomach tighten. Hui finally whispered the words neither of us wanted to say. "We need help." Not from the police. Not from neighbors. Someone else. Someone who understood things that couldn't be explained. The following afternoon, an elderly man arrived by boat from Shaodok. People simply called him Master Fook. He stepped onto our property, stopped after only 3 steps, closed his eyes, then quietly said, "You burned the first charm, but you left the door open." Neither Hui nor I had mentioned the charm. Neither of us had mentioned the open door. Yet somehow, he already knew. He slowly looked up at our house. His face turned pale. Then he whispered something that made my blood run cold. "There isn't just one spirit here. Someone invited them." Master Fook didn't introduce himself. He didn't ask our names. He didn't shake our hands. Instead, he walked straight toward the center of the living room, the exact place where the clay jar had been buried. He stood there in complete silence. No one spoke. Even the wind outside seemed to disappear. After nearly a full minute, he slowly opened his eyes. Then he asked one question. "Who opened the jar?" Hui answered quietly, "One of the construction workers." Master Fook nodded. "And where is he now?" "We don't know. He quit the next day." The old man closed his eyes again. "He didn't quit. He ran." He took a small wooden compass from his cloth bag. It looked older than he was. The needle spun wildly. It never settled. He frowned. "I've only seen this happen twice. When something inside the house is moving." I looked around instinctively. "What do you mean, moving?" He didn't answer. Instead, he asked us to leave every door and window exactly as they were. Then he placed 3 incense sticks in the middle of the room. He lit them. The smoke rose straight toward the ceiling. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, all 3 streams of smoke bent sharply toward the staircase. Not because of the wind. Every window was closed. The smoke moved as if something upstairs had just inhaled. Master Fook stared at the staircase. Very quietly, he said, "We are not alone." He climbed the stairs, slowly, 1 step at a time. Hui followed. I stayed behind, halfway up. The old man suddenly stopped. He looked toward the 2nd bedroom, the room we had never used. It still contained unopened boxes from the move. He whispered, "Open the door." Hui reached for the handle. It wouldn't move. It was never locked. Master Fook touched the wood. The handle immediately turned by itself. The door slowly creaked open. The room was empty. Nothing unusual. Boxes, blank walls, dust, sunlight coming through the window. Then, I noticed something. The window was open. I was certain we'd closed every window before going to bed. The curtains moved gently in the breeze. Master Fook walked to the window, looked outside, then stepped back. His expression changed. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he pointed toward the wooden floor beneath the window. There, barely visible beneath the dust, were tiny, wet footprints. not entering the room, leaving it. They began beneath the window, walked across the floor, and stopped right beside the bedroom door. There were only 6 footprints, as though whoever had walked there had vanished halfway through the room. Master Fook knelt beside them. He touched one print with 2 fingers. The dust stuck to his skin. He brought it close to his nose, then immediately wiped his fingers on his robe. This isn't river water. What is it? He looked at me. It's grave soil. Neither Hai nor I spoke. My mouth had gone completely dry. The old man stood, walked toward one of the unopened cardboard boxes. He rested his hand on it, then frowned. Who packed this? I did, I answered. Everything inside belongs to me. He slowly opened the box. Inside were clothes, old photo albums, kitchen utensils, nothing strange. Then he reached to the very bottom. His hand disappeared beneath the clothes. When he pulled it back out, he was holding something wrapped in faded red cloth. I stared at it. I've never seen that before. Neither had Hai. Master Fook carefully unfolded the cloth. Inside was another yellow charm, almost identical to the one I'd burned months earlier. Only this one was newer. The ink was still dark, as if it had been written only days ago. The old man didn't look surprised. He looked disappointed. Very slowly, he turned toward us. I asked who invited them. I already know the answer. Neither of us understood. He continued. This charm wasn't buried. It wasn't inside the jar. It entered this house after you moved in. A cold silence filled the room. Then he asked, who has been inside your house? We began naming neighbors, relatives, friends, construction workers. He shook his head after every name. Then he asked one final question. Who had access before you moved in? Pai answered almost immediately. My mother. For the first time, Master Fook's eyes narrowed. Without another word, he wrapped the charm back in the red cloth, placed it inside his bag, then quietly said, do not tell her I found this. That evening, he prepared a small altar in our living room. No chanting, no dramatic ritual, just candles, rice, salt, a bowl of clean water, and 3 white chrysanthemums. As the sun disappeared beyond the river, he lit the candles. The flames remained perfectly still. Then, all 3 flames leaned toward the front door. Someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. No one moved. Master Fook raised one hand. Don't answer. The knocking came again, this time louder. Knock, knock, knock. Hoi whispered. What if it's my mother? The old man replied without taking his eyes off the door. If it is, she won't knock a 4th time. We waited. The entire house was silent. 30 seconds passed. Then 1 minute. Nothing. Finally, the knocking stopped. Master Fook walked to the door, opened it. The yard was empty. No footsteps, no neighbors, no bicycles, only the sound of frogs along the river. Then he looked down. Lying on the doorstep was a single fresh lotus flower. Its stem was still wet. Master Fook slowly picked it up. His face turned completely white. He whispered, almost to himself, they know I'm here now. He turned toward us. His voice was lower than I'd ever heard. Tonight, no matter what you hear, no matter who calls your name, do not leave this house. Then he blew out all 3 candles himself. Outside, something laughed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't human, but it was close enough that all 3 of us heard it. That night, none of us slept. Master Fook sat cross-legged in the middle of the living room. The 3 white chrysanthemums remained untouched on the small altar. 3 candles burned quietly. Their flames never flickered, not once. Outside, the rain had stopped. The entire village had fallen silent. No frogs, no insects, no dogs barking. For a place that usually echoed with the sounds of the countryside, the silence felt unnatural, like the whole village was holding its breath. Master Fook finally spoke. There is something you need to understand. He looked at me first, then at Hui. In Vietnam, people often think a curse is meant to kill. He slowly shook his head. The oldest curses don't kill. They make people destroy themselves. I frowned. What do you mean? He sighed. A husband suddenly hates his wife. A brother steals from his own family. A child begins hearing voices. A business fails for no reason. People think it's bad luck, but sometimes someone planted that bad luck. Hui looked disturbed. Are you saying everything that's happened was planned? Master Fook nodded. Long before this house was built. He reached into his cloth bag and carefully unfolded the second yellow charm we found hidden inside my moving box. This time, he placed it directly beneath one of the candles. The paper immediately began curling. Not from the heat. The flame never touched it. It simply twisted by itself, as though invisible fingers were crushing it. Then, dark red liquid slowly seeped through the paper, not dripping, not flowing, just appearing. Exactly where the strange symbols had been written. I stared at it. Is that? He interrupted me. It isn't blood. It only looks like blood. For several seconds, none of us spoke. Then the old man whispered something under his breath. A prayer. One I'd never heard before. The red liquid immediately disappeared. The paper became dry again. He folded it carefully. This wasn't written by an amateur. The person who made this knew exactly what they were doing. Why looked at him. My mother? Master Fook didn't answer. Instead, he asked another question. Has she ever forbidden you from digging somewhere? Why thought for a moment. Then, his face slowly changed. When I was a child, there was one place. He pointed toward the backyard, near an old mango tree. My father wanted to build a fish pond there, but my mother refused. They argued for days. She kept saying, "Leave that ground alone." Master Fook stood immediately. "Take me there." The three of us walked outside carrying only one flashlight. Clouds covered the moon. The backyard was almost completely dark. The beam of the flashlight barely reached the mango tree. As we approached, I noticed something strange. The grass beneath it was dead. Everything around it was green, but a perfect circle, nearly 10 feet wide, was nothing but dry gray soil, as if nothing had grown there for years. Master Fook knelt down, scooped up a handful of dirt, then quietly whispered, "This isn't natural." He looked at Hwai. "I need a shovel." Within minutes we began digging. The soil was unusually soft, almost too soft, like someone had disturbed it not long ago. About 2 feet down, the shovel struck wood. Not a tree root, a box. It was an old wooden chest, small, about the size of a suitcase. Its surface had almost completely rotted away. Wrapped around it was thick red string, dozens of loops, every knot tied so tightly that cutting them seemed impossible. Master Fook's face hardened. No one touches it. He carefully took a small knife from his robe. Instead of cutting the string, he began untying each knot, one by one, very slowly. It took nearly 20 minutes. No one spoke. Even the wind had disappeared again. When the final knot came loose, the old man stopped. He looked directly at us. "If this box contains what I think it does, everything changes tonight." He slowly lifted the lid. At first, I thought it was empty. Then the flashlight caught something white, a tiny porcelain doll, no bigger than my hand. It wore an old Vietnamese silk outfit. Its face was painted by hand, beautiful, almost lifelike, but its eyes were made from tiny black stones. They reflected the flashlight like real pupils. Beside the doll lay several faded family photographs. Every single one had the faces scratched out except one. Master Fook picked it up carefully. It was an old wedding photograph, yellow with age. The groom stood beside a young woman wearing a traditional Vietnamese ao dai. The groom's face had been completely destroyed, scratched away. The bride's face remained untouched. I looked closer. Then my heart nearly stopped. The bride looked exactly like my mother-in-law, only 40 years younger. Behind the photograph, someone had written a single sentence in faded ink. "If I cannot keep my son, no woman ever will." No one moved, no one breathed. Hui's hands began shaking. That's my mother's handwriting. Before anyone could speak again, a woman's voice drifted through the darkness, soft, almost loving. Hui! It came from somewhere behind us. My husband instinctively turned. Master Foot grabbed his arm so hard he cried out, "Don't!" The voice came again, closer. Hui, son. This time, I recognized it. It sounded exactly like my mother-in-law. But we had seen her leave the village that afternoon to visit a relative nearly 50 miles away. She couldn't possibly be here. Master Foot whispered without taking his eyes off the darkness. "That isn't your mother." Then, from somewhere beneath the mango tree, another voice answered, the voice of a little girl, quietly crying. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Master Foot looked genuinely afraid. He slowly backed away from the open box and whispered 3 words that I will never forget. "We're too late." No one moved, not me, not Hui, not even Master Foot. The little girl's sobbing continued beneath the mango tree. It wasn't loud, it sounded lonely, like a child who had been waiting a very long time for someone to answer. Then it stopped, without warning. The silence that followed felt even worse. Master Foot slowly closed the wooden chest. His hands were trembling. I'd never seen him afraid before. He looked toward the darkness behind us. "They know we found it," I swallowed. Who? Who are they?" He didn't answer. Instead, he wrapped the porcelain doll inside a white cloth and placed it carefully into his bag. Not the photographs, not the old wedding picture, only the doll. I noticed that immediately. "Why are you taking that?" He stared at the doll for several seconds. "Because it's the only thing keeping this family alive." Neither I nor I understood what he meant. But before we could ask another question, a cold wind swept across the yard. Every bamboo tree around us began swaying violently. Leaves spun through the air. The flashlight flickered. Once, twice. Then, everything went dark. For just a second, the village disappeared. There was no house, no trees, no river, only darkness, complete darkness. Then the flashlight came back on, and something had changed. The wooden chest was gone. The hole we dug had vanished. The ground beneath our feet looked untouched, as if we'd never dug there at all. Only our muddy shovels remained. Hui whispered, "What just happened?" Master Foot replied without turning around, "They don't want us to remember." We hurried back inside the house. The moment the front door closed, every light came back. The electricity had never gone out, yet my flashlight, which had brand new batteries, was completely dead. Master Foot placed the wrapped doll on the small altar. The candle flames immediately shrank. Not from a breeze. It felt as if the room itself had become heavier, harder to breathe. The old man stared at the doll for a long time. Finally, he spoke. This wasn't made to trap a spirit. It was made to trap a promise. Hui frowned. "A promise?" Master Foot nodded. "In old Vietnamese folk beliefs, there were rituals no temple would ever perform. Some people believed that if they offered something precious, they could ask for something in return. A healthy child, wealth, long life, revenge, but every promise had a price." He looked at the doll. "And if that price was never paid, the debt passed to the next generation." My chest tightened. "What does that have to do with us?" The old man looked directly at Hui. "Everything." He slowly unfolded the old wedding photograph we'd found in the chest. This time, he pointed toward the background. Not the bride, not the groom. Behind them, standing beneath a large banyan tree, was a little girl, barefoot, wearing a faded white dress. At first glance, she looked like any village child. But then I noticed something. Everyone in the photograph cast a shadow. The bride, the groom, the guests, even the tree. The little girl didn't. I felt my heartbeat quicken. "Who is she?" Master Foot answered quietly, "No one knows." "Because she was never part of the wedding." Wood leaned closer. "Then why is she in the picture?" The old man looked at him with sad eyes. "Because the camera saw someone that the guests never did." A heavy silence settled over the room. Then Hui suddenly stood. "Wait, I remember something." He rushed upstairs. A minute later, he returned carrying a dusty family photo album. I haven't looked at this in years. He flipped through page after page, birthdays, tet celebrations, school photos, funerals. Then he stopped, his face drained of color. Lan, you need to see this. It was a photograph of Hwai's 10th birthday. Children surrounded a table covered with fruit and a homemade cake. His parents stood behind him. Everyone was smiling, until I looked toward the far corner of the picture. Near the kitchen doorway, a little girl in a white dress was watching them. The same girl, the same face, the same empty expression. Again, she had no shadow. I looked up. When was this taken? Hwai swallowed hard. 20 years ago. Master Fook slowly closed the album. She hasn't been following your family. He paused, then corrected himself. No, your family has been living with her. Before any of us could process those words, 3 loud bangs echoed from outside. Not on the front door, not on the walls, from beneath the floor. Bang! The wooden floor shook. Bang! Dust fell from the ceiling. Bang! Something underneath the house had just knocked back. Master Fook's face turned deathly pale. He immediately blew out every candle. Don't make a sound. We froze. The house became completely dark. Then, from directly beneath our feet, a little girl's voice whispered, clear enough for all 3 of us to hear. He's coming home. The whisper faded. A second later, something impossibly heavy began walking beneath the floorboards. Not running, not crawling, walking, slowly, deliberately, as if it already knew exactly where we were standing. No one breathed. The footsteps beneath the floor continued. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Each step made the wooden planks tremble beneath our feet. Not enough to shake the furniture, just enough to let us know something was directly below us. Listening, waiting. Master Fook raised one finger to his lips. His eyes never left the floor. The footsteps stopped. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, a single knock came from directly beneath the altar. Knock, not loud, almost polite, as though someone was asking permission to enter. The old man whispered, "Do not answer." Another knock, knock. This time it came from the bedroom upstairs, then another, behind the kitchen wall, then another, inside the ceiling. Within seconds, the entire house was echoing with slow, deliberate knocks. Not random, moving, like someone walking through the walls, searching for something, or someone. Without warning, every knock stopped. At the exact same moment, the silence felt unbearable. Then, a rooster crowed outside. Master Fook looked toward the window. Dawn. He exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. It won't come after sunrise. I stared at him. The old man finally looked at me. The thing under your house isn't a ghost. The words hung in the air. I had expected him to say demon or spirit or curse, anything, but not that. If it isn't a ghost, what is it? He was silent for several seconds, then answered quietly. In Vietnamese folklore, there are stories older than Buddhism, older than temples, older than written history. My grandfather called them the hungry ones. They don't haunt people, they haunt places. They don't remember who they were, they only remember that something was promised to them. A cold shiver ran through me. What promise? Master Fook looked toward the wrapped porcelain doll. I don't know, but someone in this family did. Just then, we heard the front gate creak open. Someone was outside. A familiar voice called from the yard. Hi? It was his mother. Hui immediately rushed toward the door. Master Fook stepped in front of him. Wait, it's daylight. I know. He shook his head. I still need to make sure. The old man walked to the window instead of opening the door. He carefully pulled the curtain aside just enough to look out. Then he relaxed. This time, it's really her. When we opened the door, my mother-in-law was standing in the yard with 2 woven baskets full of fruit. She smiled, the same warm smile she'd always worn. But this morning, it looked different, forced, like someone pretending everything was normal. She noticed Master Fook immediately. The smile disappeared. You called him. It wasn't a question. No one answered. She slowly stepped inside. The moment she crossed the doorway, she stopped. Her eyes locked onto the white cloth resting on the altar. She whispered, "You found it." Master Fook nodded. "I found what you failed to hide." For several seconds, neither of them moved. It felt less like two people talking and more like two people finishing a conversation that had started decades earlier. Finally, my mother-in-law sat down. She looked exhausted, older than I'd ever seen her. She turned toward me. "Lon, I'm sorry." Those were the last words I ever expected to hear from her. "I know you think I cursed you. I know you think I hated you." She lowered her eyes. "I wanted you to hate me. If you hated me, you would leave. If you left, you would live." I couldn't speak. Everything I'd believed for months suddenly felt uncertain. "What about the charm in my pillow?" "I put it there." "What about the second charm?" "I hid that too." "The jar?" "I buried it." My heart sank. "So, it really was you?" She nodded. "Yes, but not for the reason you think." Tears began filling her eyes. "When Hui was born, he almost died. He stopped breathing for nearly 4 minutes. The doctor said there was nothing they could do." Her voice cracked. "I was desperate, so I listened to the wrong person." Master Fook closed his eyes. "You made a bargain." She nodded. "Barely. I didn't ask for wealth. I didn't ask for power. I only asked for my son to live." The room fell silent. She continued. "The old woman who performed the ritual warned me. One day, someone you love will have to take your place. I thought she was trying to scare me. I thought she wanted more money, so I ignored her." She looked toward Why. "I was wrong." Master Fook spoke softly. "The bargain has reached its final generation." She slowly nodded. "It wants Why." Why stared at his mother in disbelief. "No, no. There has to be another way." She began crying openly now. "I've spent 30 years trying to stop it. The charms, the jar, the doll, they weren't curses. They were locks. I wasn't keeping something inside. I was keeping something out." At that exact moment, a deafening crack echoed through the house. Everyone jumped. One of the massive wooden support beams in the living room split clean down the middle. Not from age, not from termites. It sounded as though something unimaginably strong had struck it from below. Dust rained from the ceiling. The wrapped porcelain doll slid across the altar by itself and stopped at the very edge. Master Fook lunged forward just in time to catch it before it hit the floor. His face turned as white as the cloth in his hands. He whispered one sentence, not to us, but to whatever was listening beneath the house. "You waited 30 years. The reply came instantly. Not from outside, not from under the floor, from every wall, every window, every beam of the house at once. A voice unlike anything I'd ever heard, deep, ancient, neither male nor female, just old. It spoke only 4 words. The dead is due. The entire house shuddered, and for the first time, I realized something terrifying. The thing beneath us had never been trying to get in. It had been waiting for someone to open the final lock. The house fell silent. Not naturally. It was the kind of silence that comes after thunder, when the world seems to stop breathing. No insects, no wind. Even the river outside had gone still. Master Fook clutched the porcelain doll against his chest as though it were a living child. He looked directly at my mother-in-law. "You never told them the truth." She slowly wiped the tears from her face. "Because I hoped I'd die before it came back." Master Fook nodded sadly. "That was never going to happen." He turned toward Hua. "Your mother didn't make a deal with the ghost. She made a promise to something much older." He walked toward the family altar. Above it hung several framed photographs of Huai's ancestors, great-grandparents, grandparents, relatives whose names I'd never learned. Master Fook pointed at the oldest photograph, a stern-looking man wearing a black kundong. "Who is he?" Hui shrugged. "My great-grandfather. My father said he founded this land. Master Fook slowly shook his head. No, he stole it. The room went quiet. My mother-in-law closed her eyes. She already knew. More than 100 years ago, before the French built roads through that region, before electricity reached the villages, the land where our house stood wasn't farmland. It wasn't even a village. It was sacred ground. A place where people buried children who died before they were given names. In old Vietnamese belief, those children had no ancestors to guide them. So villagers built a small shrine beneath a giant banyan tree, not to worship them, to make sure they were never alone. For generations, people left bowls of rice, small toys, lanterns during the Mid-Autumn Festival. No one ever took anything away. Then one year, everything changed. Huai's great-grandfather wanted the land. He burned the shrine, cut down the banyan tree, filled the burial ground with dirt, built his house directly over it. The villagers protested. He laughed. He called them superstitious fools. Master Fook's voice became quieter. 3 months later, his youngest son disappeared. No body, no footprints, no ransom. The child simply vanished. After that, every firstborn son in the family suffered strange accidents. Some drowned. Some died from illness. Some disappeared without explanation. Generation after generation after generation. Until Hui. I slowly looked toward my mother-in-law. So when Hui stopped breathing as a baby, she nodded. I knew it had come back. Master Fook continued. The old woman your mother found didn't save Hui. She postponed the payment. The words landed like stones. You can't erase a debt. You can only delay it. A tear rolled down Hai's cheek. So all these years, my mother wasn't protecting herself. Master Fook answered softly. She was protecting you. At that moment, something heavy slammed against the front door. Boom. The entire house shook. Another impact. Boom. A crack spread across the wooden frame. Everyone froze. Then came a third. Boom. The door burst open. Cold air rushed inside. The candles on the altar went out instantly. The room was dark except for the pale morning light spilling through the doorway. No one was there. Just the empty yard. The mango tree swaying gently. Nothing else. Master Fook whispered, "Close it." Hui ran toward the door. Halfway there, he stopped. His face turned white. "What is it?" I asked. He pointed outside, toward the dirt path leading to the river. There were footprints. Hundreds of them. Tiny bare footprints, all the same size, all belonging to children. They stretched from the riverbank, across the yard, right up to our front door. But there was something impossible about them. Every footprint faced the house. None faced away, as though every child had walked here, and none of them had ever left. Master Fook lowered his head. "They've come to watch." My stomach tightened. "Watch what?" He looked at Huai. "They know the debt will be collected today. For the first time since this nightmare began, my husband lost control. He grabbed a heavy wooden chair, hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall. "No, I'm done. I don't care what this thing is. I don't care about some promise made before I was born. It wants me, then let it come." His voice echoed through the house. Master Fook's expression changed instantly. "Hui, be quiet." But it was too late. The old man slowly closed his eyes. "You just answered it." The temperature inside the house dropped so suddenly that I could see my own breath. Every framed photograph on the wall tilted at exactly the same angle. The porcelain doll, which had remained still since dawn, slowly raised its head. Not much, just enough to look directly at Huai. Its tiny painted lips parted, and in the unmistakable voice of a little girl, it whispered, "He said yes." The doll smiled. Outside, every single child's footprint began filling with water. Not rainwater, river water, dark, thick, and carrying with it the smell of wet earth and something that had been buried for far too long. The doll's smile disappeared. Just as suddenly as it had appeared, its painted face became still again. No one moved. No one even blinked. I kept staring at those tiny black eyes, hoping I had imagined what I'd just seen. Then Master Fook spoke, very quietly. "We don't have much time." He carefully wrapped the doll in the white cloth again. This time, he tied the cloth shut with a red thread from his robe. His hands were shaking harder now, not with fear, with urgency. "There is only one way to end this." Why looked at him immediately. "Tell me." The old man didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the broken front door and looked toward the river. The muddy footprints were still there, hundreds of them, perfectly still, waiting. "When a promise is broken," he finally said, "there are only two endings. The debt is paid, or the promise is returned." I frowned. "I don't understand." Master Fook turned toward me. "The woman who saved Huai 30 years ago didn't create the curse. She simply borrowed time." He paused. "And time always wants itself back." My mother-in-law lowered her head. I knew this day would come. She reached into the pocket of her faded brown blouse. Slowly, she removed a small brass key. It looked ancient, dark with age. The handle had been carved into the shape of a lotus flower. She placed it on the table. "I've kept this hidden for 30 years. Master Fook stared at the key. His expression hardened. "So, she really gave it to you?" My mother-in-law nodded. "The old woman told me. Never let anyone open the shrine again." Why looked confused. "What shrine?" Master Fook looked out toward the river. There was never just one burial ground. The villagers built a second shrine, a hidden one. The first was burned. The second was forgotten. He pointed toward the dense bamboo grove behind our property. "That's where we're going." I felt my stomach tighten. "You think the answer is out there?" He slowly shook his head. "No, I think that's where the mistake began. None of us wanted to leave the house, not after everything that had happened, but staying didn't feel any safer. The thing beneath the floor had already spoken. It already knew Hai's name. Waiting wasn't going to save us. We left just before sunset. Master Fook walked first, holding the wrapped doll in one hand and an old oil lantern in the other. We followed, then me. My mother-in-law walked behind us in silence. She looked exhausted, as though every step cost her strength. The bamboo grove stood less than half a mile from the house. I'd passed it hundreds of times since moving there. It had always looked ordinary. Children sometimes chased dragonflies nearby. Farmers rested beneath its shade during the hottest part of the day. But I'd never entered it. No one had. There was no path, only thick bamboo growing so close together, they almost blocked the sunlight. As soon as we stepped inside, everything changed. The air became noticeably colder. The sounds of the village vanished. Even our footsteps sounded strange, soft, as if the ground beneath us wasn't dirt, but layers of wet leaves. Master Fook stopped walking. He held the lantern higher. "Listen." At first, I heard nothing. Then, very faintly, children laughing, far away, hidden somewhere among the bamboo. Not one child, several, playing, laughing, singing. The sounds drifted through the grove like the wind, except there wasn't any wind. Why whispered, "Do you hear that?" I nodded. Before anyone could say another word, my mother-in-law suddenly grabbed my wrist. Hard enough to hurt. I looked at her left. She was staring straight ahead. Not at the bamboo, not at the path, at something between the trees. She whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Don't look at her." My heart skipped. "What?" "Whatever you do, don't look at the woman." I froze. Then, against every instinct, I noticed movement from the corner of my eye, about 50 feet away, between two bamboo stalks. Someone was standing there, perfectly still. A woman, long black hair, wearing a white owl dye that looked decades out of fashion. Her face was hidden behind the bamboo. Only part of her body was visible. She wasn't moving. She wasn't breathing. She was simply watching us. Master Fook never turned toward her. He spoke without looking. "If she calls your name, keep walking. If she sounds like someone you love, keep walking. If she cries, keep walking. No matter what happens, do not answer." We continued deeper into the grove. No one dared look back. But after a few moments, I realized something terrifying. The sound of footsteps behind us had changed. There should have been 4 people walking. Master Fook, Hui, my mother-in-law, and me. Instead, I counted 5. One extra set of footsteps, perfectly matching our pace. Never faster, never slower. Just one person too many. I wanted to turn around. Every instinct screamed at me to check. But I remembered my mother-in-law's warning. Don't look, so I kept walking. One step, then another. The 5th pair of footsteps never left. Then, for the first time, someone whispered directly into my ear. Not loudly, not angrily, almost like a mother comforting her child. Lon, thank you. I stopped breathing because I recognized the voice. It wasn't the woman in white. It wasn't a child. It belonged to someone who had died when I was only 14 years old. My own mother. Master Fook shouted without turning around. Keep walking. I forced my legs to move. Tears filled my eyes. The voice came again. Closer. More desperate. Please. Just look at me once. I nearly turned. Nearly. Then, the wrapped porcelain doll suddenly began shaking violently inside Master Fook's hands. Not a little. It was trying to get out. The red thread binding the cloth snapped all by itself. The doll fell to the ground. Its tiny head slowly rotated until it faced directly behind us. Its painted lips opened, and in a frightened little girl's voice, it whispered, "She's here." Master Fook spun around for the very first time. The color drained from his face. He whispered something I couldn't understand. Then, he extinguished the lantern with one breath. Darkness swallowed the bamboo grove, and from somewhere only a few feet away, a woman laughed. Not cruelly, not loudly, just softly, as if she'd finally found us. Darkness swallowed everything. Not the kind of darkness you experience during a power outage. This was different. It felt thick, as though the night itself had weight. I couldn't even see my own hands. The only sound was our breathing, and somewhere nearby, the slow creaking of bamboo bending in the wind, except there still wasn't any wind. Don't move. Master Fook's voice came from somewhere ahead. It sounded calm, but I could hear the strain behind every word. If you move, I can't protect you. Then, something brushed against my shoulder, soft, like long hair. I froze. Every instinct told me to run. Instead, I closed my eyes. A cold breath touched my ear. Then the same gentle voice returned. You dropped something. I knew better than to answer, but curiosity is one of the oldest traps fear has. Against my better judgment, I looked down. There was nothing. When I looked back up, someone was standing less than 3 feet away. The woman in the white owl died. For the first time, I could see her face. She wasn't horrifying. She wasn't covered in blood. She wasn't smiling. She looked heartbroken. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her skin was pale. Her hair hung loosely over one shoulder. She looked like an ordinary Vietnamese woman, except for one thing. She had no shadow. Even beneath the faint moonlight filtering through the bamboo, there was nothing behind her. She slowly raised one finger and pointed deeper into the grove. Not toward us, not toward the house, toward something hidden beyond the bamboo. Very softly, she shook her head, as if she were trying to warn us. Behind me, I heard Master Fook whisper, "No." His voice wasn't frightened, it was filled with regret. I was wrong. The woman looked at him. For the first time, she spoke. Not to me, not to Hai, to him. "You remembered." Master Fook slowly lowered his head. I should have remembered sooner. Hui stared between them. "What is happening?" The old man took a long breath. Then he said something none of us expected. "The woman isn't the one hunting us." Silence. She never was. I felt the world shift beneath my feet. Everything we believed, every sleepless night, every strange voice, every glimpse of white among the trees, had convinced us she was the spirit tormenting our family. She wasn't. She had been trying to keep us away. The woman turned back toward the darkness beyond the grove. Her expression changed. For the first time, I saw fear, not for herself, for us. Then she whispered, "He's awake." The ground trembled, once, then again, not violently, just enough to send ripples through puddles of rainwater. Birds exploded from the tops of the bamboo, hundreds of them, all at once, flying in complete silence. Master Fook's face went pale. He grabbed the wrapped porcelain doll from the ground, only it wasn't wrapped anymore. The white cloth had fallen away. The doll's tiny stone eyes were gone. Two empty black holes stared back at us. "It found us," he whispered. A deep cracking sound echoed somewhere beneath the earth. Not wood, not stone, something much larger. It sounded like an enormous door opening after being sealed for centuries. The bamboo around us began leaning inward, not from the wind, toward one point, the center of the grove, as though every tree were bowing. Then the earth split. A narrow crack opened in the soil ahead, only a few inches wide. From inside, warm air poured upward. It carried the smell of river mud, burned incense, and something ancient, something that had remained buried far longer than it ever should have. My mother-in-law fell to her knees. She wasn't crying. She was praying, over and over, the same words. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Master Fook slowly closed his eyes. Then he looked at Hui. "There is one truth. I've been afraid to tell you." Hui didn't speak. He simply stared. "The debt was never your life." I blinked. "What?" Master Fook looked toward the widening crack in the earth. "The thing beneath your house. It doesn't want your body. It never did. It wants the last living blood of the man who destroyed the shrine." Hui frowned. "But that's me." The old man shook his head, slowly. "No." Everyone looked at him, even the woman in white. Master Fook turned, not toward Hui, but toward his mother. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Hui, you were adopted." The words struck harder than any scream. The world seemed to stop. Hui simply stared, unable to breathe, unable to think. His mother covered her mouth with trembling hands. Fresh tears streamed down her face. "I never wanted you to know," she whispered. "You were only 3 days old when I found you, wrapped in a blanket, floating in a bamboo basket on the river." She broke down completely. "I couldn't have children. My own baby died. I begged the heavens for another chance, and then I found you. I believed you were heaven's answer." Master Fook slowly closed his eyes. "No," he whispered. "You were never heaven's answer. You were sent." Before he could finish, the woman in white suddenly screamed. Not at us, behind us. Her scream wasn't one of anger. It was a warning, a desperate warning. Master Fook spun around, his eyes widened in absolute horror. Then he shouted the one sentence that echoed through the bamboo grove like thunder. "Don't let it take her." Every head turned toward me, and only then did I realize the crack in the earth had opened directly beneath my feet. The ground collapsed beneath me. I didn't even have time to scream. 1 second, I was standing beside Hui. The next, the earth simply disappeared. I fell into darkness. I expected to hit rock or mud. Instead, I landed on water, cold, perfectly still. The kind of water that shouldn't exist beneath dry ground. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't inside a cave. I was standing ankle deep in a flooded stone chamber. The ceiling stretched high above me, covered in thick tree roots. Ancient bricks surrounded me on every side. In front of me stood a shrine, small, broken, half swallowed by the earth. Its roof had collapsed decades ago, yet somehow, a single incense stick was still burning. Above me, I could hear Hui shouting my name. His voice sounded impossibly far away. Master Fook yelled something I couldn't understand. Then, everything became quiet again, except for the sound of tiny footsteps. Not one child, many, dozens of them, slowly emerging from the darkness, one after another. Children, barefoot, wearing faded clothes from another century. None of them looked frightening. Most couldn't have been older than 8. Some held little paper lanterns. Some carried wooden toys. One little boy hugged a cloth tiger with only one button eye. They surrounded the broken shrine and simply looked at me. No anger, no hatred, only sadness. Then, the little girl in the white dress stepped forward, the same girl from every photograph, the same child with no shadow. She smiled gently. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. She reached into the folds of her dress and placed something in my hand. It was an old silver bracelet, tarnished by time. I stared at it, unable to breathe, because I recognized it. My grandmother had worn the exact same bracelet. When I was a child, she always told me never to lose it. After she died, the bracelet disappeared. No one ever found it, until now. I looked at the girl. "Who are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed toward the broken shrine. There, carved into the stone, was a family name. Not High's, mine. My heart stopped. Memories I had never questioned suddenly came rushing back. My grandmother, her refusal to speak about her childhood, her fear whenever anyone mentioned Anjiang, the strange story she'd tell every mid-autumn festival about children who waited beside the river. Stories I had always believed were fairy tales. They weren't. They were memories. Master Fuch's voice echoed from somewhere above. "Lan, if you can hear me, look behind the shrine." I ran. Behind the crumbling altar, I found a stone tablet almost completely buried beneath roots. The inscription had nearly faded away, but one sentence remained. I brushed away the mud with trembling hands. It read, "May no child ever be forgotten again." And then I understood. The shrine had never imprisoned anyone. It had protected them. When Hui's great-grandfather destroyed it, he hadn't released a monster. He had abandoned the spirits of children who had no families left to remember them. For generations, they waited, not for revenge, for someone to rebuild the place where they belonged. The true curse had never been hatred, it was neglect. The thing beneath the house, the ancient presence Master Fuch had called the Hungry One, wasn't feeding on blood, it fed on broken promises. Every generation that ignored the forgotten shrine made it stronger. Every generation that chose greed over compassion gave it another reason to remain. The little girl took my hand. She led me toward the broken altar. Then she looked up, not at me, above me, toward the crack in the earth. She whispered her very first words directly to me. "They're waiting." The children gathered together one by one. They placed their toys, their lanterns, their tiny treasures before the ruined shrine. I understood what they wanted. Not my life, not a sacrifice, a home, a place where they would finally be remembered. I picked up the fallen incense stick, shielded its tiny flame with both hands. Then, I placed it back into the cracked stone holder. For one long second, nothing happened. Then the flame burned brighter than any candle I'd ever seen. Warm light filled the chamber. The children smiled, one after another. Their bodies became transparent, not disappearing in fear, leaving in peace. The little girl smiled last. Before fading away, she whispered, "Thank you." The ground shook violently. The stone ceiling began collapsing. Roots snapped overhead. I heard Master Fuch shouting. Hands reached through the opening above. Hui, he grabbed my wrist. Together. He and Master Fuch pulled me back to the surface just as the chamber collapsed beneath us forever. Morning sunlight broke through the clouds. The bamboo grove was silent, peaceful. The strange coldness had vanished. Even the birds had returned. My mother-in-law fell to her knees. For the first time in 30 years, she smiled through her tears. "It's over." Master Fuch looked toward the ground where the crack had sealed itself. Then he quietly said, "No, it's finished." 3 months later, the villagers came together, not because they believed our story. Most didn't. They came because Master Fuch asked them to. Together, they built a small stone shrine beside the river. Every mid-autumn festival, children from the village now leave lanterns there, rice, candy, small toys. No one knows exactly why. It's simply become tradition. Hui and I never moved back into that house. We tore it down ourselves, not out of fear, out of respect. Today, a small garden grows where it once stood. No walls, no foundation, only flowers. People often ask me whether I believe in ghosts. I tell them, yes, but not because I saw spirits, because I learned something far more frightening. Sometimes the dead don't become monsters. People do. When we forget those who came before us, when we bury the truth, when we choose pride over kindness, we create the very darkness we blame on ghosts. I never saw the little girl again. But every mid-autumn festival, someone leaves a small paper lantern at our gate. No footprints, just a lantern, always lit, always facing the river. And every year, when I pick it up, I notice something I can never explain. The flame never burns my hand. The end.
If you enjoyed this story and found it interesting, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more spine-chilling tales. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, and see you in the next story.